water comes out brown first. Not always. Sometimes it comes out clear and smells like a swimming pool that's been closed for a decade, and that's almost worse, because the eye can't argue with a smell the way it can argue with a color. April of 2014, Flint, Michigan. A city under emergency financial management flips a valve to save a few $1 million a year, switches the water source from Lake Huron to the Flint River, and within days people are photographing their own bathtubs. Not for social media. There wasn't a plan for that yet. They're photographing their taps because some part of their brain, the old reptile part that still works even after the rest of the system has failed, already understood that nobody official was going to believe them without a picture. Rashes on kids after baths, hair falling out in clumps that mothers kept in sandwich bags like evidence, because it was evidence. A boil water notice arrives that October, 6 months after the switch. And here's the detail that should bother you more than it probably does. Boiling that water did not help. We'll get to why. Hold that thought because it's the ugliest piece of arithmetic in this entire file. This wasn't an explosion. It never is. This was a slow, bureaucratic collapse wherein the paperwork of routine cost-cutting, and it ran for roughly 18 months before the state of Michigan admitted in public what residents already knew in their kitchens. During that window, General Motors quietly pulled their local engine plant off the city water supply, switched back to Detroit water because the Flint River water was corroding engine parts. Metal. The water was corroding metal parts faster than officials were willing to admit it might be corroding children. Residents kept drinking from the same taps. Meanwhile, a civil engineer named Marc working out of Virginia Tech, started running independent lead tests in Flint homes because the state's own testing protocol was, and I'm being generous here, structured in a way that made it very hard to find lead, even when lead was standing right in front of you. And a pediatrician, Dr. Mona Hanna Atisha, started pulling blood lead data from her own patients and found the numbers climbing in exactly the neighborhoods you'd expect, and published it, and got publicly dismissed by state officials as an unreliable source before she was proven right. 2 people did the government's job for free because the government had other priorities. That's not a moral I'm inserting. That's just what the timeline says happened. The households that came out the other side less damaged weren't the ones who trusted the process. They were the ones who stopped waiting for permission to be worried, who bought bottled water before it was official policy, who let independent testers into their homes before the state considered that necessary, who treated "it's probably fine" as a phrase to be suspicious of rather than a phrase to relax into. This file gets a new entry every week. Subscribe if you'd rather have the numbers before the crisis than after it. So let's do the numbers, because vibes don't survive contact with a blood test. The EPA's action level for lead in drinking water sits at 15 parts per billion, not a safety guarantee, just the threshold where a utility is legally required to start doing something. Some Flint homes tested above that. Some tested wildly above that. One infamous residential sample came back over 900 parts per billion, which is not a rounding error. That's a different category of problem entirely. For a family of 4, the daily water requirement for drinking, cooking, and brushing teeth alone, not showering. Showering's a separate exposure conversation for skin and inhalation, runs somewhere around 1 to 1.5 gallons per person per day for actual consumption needs, which puts a cautious household in the range of 4 to 6 gallons a day just to eat and drink and stay hydrated without touching the tap. That's roughly 30 to 40 gallons a week. Bottled water at that volume is heavy, it's bulky. It has a shelf life that's really about the plastic degrading more than the water itself. And it's a logistics problem, not a solution. It's triage. A basic carbon pitcher filter, the kind sitting in half the refrigerators in America right now, runs about $20 to $30 and does essentially nothing for lead because standard carbon filtration wasn't designed for heavy metals. What actually removes lead is a filter certified under NSF/ANSI Standard 53 for lead reduction. That certification is the entire ballgame. The difference between a filter that improves taste and one that improves your blood chemistry. Certified units cost more, sometimes double or triple the basic pitcher price. But they're solving a problem the basic filter was never built to solve. Here's the part that should sit uncomfortably with you. Most residents, in the early months, did the responsible sounding thing. They ran the tap for a few minutes before use, because that's the standard advice for sediment and stagnant pipe water. And it does nothing for lead leaching from corroded service lines. Worse, plenty of households boiled their water, because boiling is the ancient, reliable instinct for making water safe. Kills bacteria, kills parasites. Lead is a metal. It doesn't evaporate. Boiling water contaminated with lead doesn't purify it. It reduces the water volume through evaporation while the lead stays behind, which means you can, in a technical and thoroughly depressing sense, concentrate the poison by trying to boil it away. That's not a design flaw in the resident's thinking. That's a completely reasonable instinct, correctly executed, aimed at the wrong threat. And then people waited. They waited for the all clear, the way you wait for a bus you can see on the tracker, assuming the schedule is basically honest. In Flint, that all clear took years to arrive. And for some residents, given the pipe replacement timeline, it's still arriving in pieces. What actually worked was smaller and less dramatic than people expect. It wasn't heroism. It was residents and researchers who treated official reassurance as a lagging indicator, a report on where things used to stand, not a green light for where things stand now, and who treated lead contamination as a hardware problem, a plumbing problem, something you fix with a physical barrier between yourself and the pipe, not something you wait out through patience and press releases. They tested water themselves. They didn't ask permission to be alarmed. The takeaway that actually moves the needle isn't a bunker. It isn't a decade of bottled water in a garage. It's smaller than that and cheaper. Get a filter that's actually NSF/ANSI 53 certified for lead. Read the box. The certification's usually printed right on it. And if it's not printed on it, that tells you something too. Learn to read your city's Consumer Confidence Report, the annual water quality summary every municipal supplier is required to publish. Most people have never opened theirs. And get your own water independently tested once a year. Depending on your state, that's often somewhere between free and around $50 through a certified lab, less than a tank of gas, and it tells you more in one afternoon than a municipal notice will tell you in 3 years. This isn't a doomsday habit. It's infrastructure literacy, the same category of skill as knowing where your breaker box is. Flint's pipes weren't a freak event. They were old, and they were lead, and they were first. Underneath most American cities right now, there's a comparable network of aging lead and galvanized service lines, quietly corroding on a budget cycle nobody's rushing to fund, waiting for the next cost-cutting decision that looks, on paper, like routine maintenance. I checked my own city's report a while back. Numbers were fine. Mildly curious whether you've checked yours.
Welcome to the Wasteland, darling, where the jukebox never dies. Just a little music for the journey underneath these endless skies.